Forget who the most evil villain in The Rookie is. The real question is who is smart enough to break John Nolan. If every major criminal got one last shot, some would fail instantly. Others could destroy his entire life. Today, we rank them by one brutal test. Nolan versus their playbook. Who survives? Tier 1, no chance against Nolan. In this first tier are the criminals who look dangerous on paper but never really stood a chance once Nolan locked onto them. They rely on chaos, numbers, or overconfidence instead of actually outthinking him, and that's exactly why they lose. Oscar Hutchinson is the perfect example. On his record, he's a convicted murderer, an escaped inmate, and a narcissist who somehow keeps wandering back into Nolan's life. But for all the damage he's done, Oscar survives more on luck and shameless talking than any real strategy. He runs his mouth, looks for angles to save himself, and never truly plays a long, careful game against Nolan. He's dangerous in the moment, sure, but as a serious brain-to-brain threat, he's more chaotic distraction than mastermind. Right beside him is the border town crime ring Nolan takes down in that remote assignment near the border, the operation that earns him his golden ticket. These guys think they've got the perfect setup. Nolan is isolated, out of his usual territory, low on ammunition, and cut off from LAPD backup. From their point of view, he's easy meat. All they have to do is roll up with enough guns and bodies, and the problem solves itself. But they make the same mistake a lot of criminals do with Nolan. They underestimate how he thinks under pressure. Instead of panicking, he uses the environment, works with the people around him, and turns a hopeless standoff into a complete dismantling of their operation. By the time the dust settles, the easy target is the guy who just wiped out a major federal-level crew and earned himself a golden ticket for it. Criminals in this tier can throw bullets, threats, and chaos at him, but they never really get close to outsmarting John Nolan. They don't study him, they don't build layered traps, and they don't respect how dangerous a calm, stubborn cop can be when he refuses to break. Tier 2, they shake his world, but still lose. In Tier 2 are the criminals who don't just exist in Nolan's city. They crash straight into his life. They pick people he loves, tear into his trust, and for a while, it feels like they might rewrite his future, but they still can't quite finish the job. Jason Wyler is the most personal wound. On the surface, he's just Bailey's ex. Underneath, he's a walking obsession. He doesn't care about money or status. He wants Bailey's life destroyed, and Nolan dragged through the wreckage with her. He starts with emotional abuse, then frames her by planting drugs in her car, trying to detonate her career and her relationship with Nolan in one move. When prison takes that away from him, he uses an escape as his second chance, running her down with a car and trying to kidnap her so he can end this once and for all. For a moment, it works. Nolan is forced to watch someone he loves hunted by a man who knows exactly where to hit. The danger feels close, raw, and personal, but Jason's greatest weapon, his obsession, is also his biggest weakness. He stops thinking, starts raging, and underestimates both Bailey's strength and Nolan's refusal to give up. Bailey fights back, escapes, and Jason dies, chasing a fantasy ending he never truly controlled. He leaves scars, but he never outsmarts Nolan. Then there's Nick Armstrong, the cop Nolan should have been able to trust. Nick walks into Nolan's world as a mentor figure, someone wearing the same badge, speaking the same language, and pretending to play by the same rules. In reality, he's tied to a powerful crime family, and uses that position to steer cases, manipulate evidence, and even plant drugs to make Nolan look like the dirty one. Armstrong doesn't just threaten Nolan's safety, he goes after Nolan's career, reputation, and faith in his own instincts. For a while, it looks like he might actually win. Nolan's name is stained, his future in the department is hanging by a thread, and the system he believes in feels rigged from the inside. But once the cracks start to show, and Nolan finally sees the full picture, he pushes back, refuses to roll over, and helps bring Armstrong down. Nick shakes his world, but he still misjudges how hard Nolan fights once the mask is off. Criminals in this tier win brutal battles. They traumatize, betray, and almost erase everything Nolan has built, but almost is as far as they get. Tier 3, on the edge of outplaying him. Tier 3 is where things get truly uncomfortable. These aren't just angry exes or corrupt cops. They're calculated threats whose moves pull Nolan into situations where he's genuinely playing catch-up. They think ahead, build layers into their plans, and force him to fight for every inch. Joel Chambers fits this tier as the kind of villain who hides behind respectability until it's almost too late. On the surface, he looks like just another citizen caught up in the chaos. Underneath, he's tied to darker choices that blur the line between victim and architect. Nolan ends up navigating a case where Joel's decisions endanger others while he tries to keep his own hands clean, turning the investigation into a test of how quickly Nolan can strip away that facade before more people pay the price. Joel isn't sloppily reckless. He's careful enough that if Nolan were just a little slower, Joel's version of the story might actually stick. Beside him is Malvado, not just a hired gun, but a legend in the criminal world, a cartel hitman whose name alone signals how dangerous he is. Even when he isn't walking directly into a scene with Nolan, his shadow hangs over Nolan and Bailey's lives through Jason's storyline and the larger violent world they're caught in. Malvado represents the kind of enemy Nolan can't just talk down or outlast on willpower alone. If their paths fully crossed with both men aware of each other, it wouldn't just be a normal arrest. It would be a test of whether Nolan's planning and instincts can keep up with someone who's survived this long by being just as patient and just as ruthless on his side of the line. Criminals like Joel and Malvado aren't unbeatable, but they are the kind of enemies who remind Nolan that being brave isn't enough. If he hesitates, trusts the wrong person, or misses one detail, they have just enough intelligence and patience to turn that into a win. Tier 4, the ones who almost broke him. At the very top are the criminals who don't just want to win. They want to rewrite John Nolan. They study him, target him, and build entire plans around who he is and what he can't live with. Marcus Lindsey belongs up here because he doesn't treat Nolan like a random cop. He treats him like an opponent. Marcus isn't loud or sloppy. He moves like someone who understands how investigations work and how to twist timing, evidence, or other people to keep himself one step out of reach. When Nolan goes up against someone like Marcus, he isn't just chasing a suspect. He's trying to untangle a mind that's actively thinking about how to stay ahead of him. On the wrong day, with one bad call, Marcus feels like the kind of criminal who could flip the script and leave Nolan holding the blame. But even Marcus is playing in the shadow of Rosalind Dyer, the clearest example of a villain who turns Nolan himself into the game. She isn't satisfied with body count or chaos. From the moment she locks onto him, she treats him like a long-term project. She learns what he cares about, who he protects, and exactly where his moral line might start to crack. Rosalind doesn't attack Nolan with brute force. She attacks him with choices. She manipulates from the shadows, recruits killers as puppets, and designs puzzles that hit painfully close to home. Lucy's abduction, psychological games, and later the horrific contraption built to slowly kill Bailey while Nolan watches. Her goal is simple and terrifying, not just to hurt him, but to make him live with the idea that he finally crossed the line and became something he swore he wouldn't. What makes Rosalind so dangerous is how long it feels like she might actually pull it off. She stays calm when plans shift, adapts, and never stops looking for new ways to dig under his skin. Even in chains, she controls the room because the real prison she wants is inside Nolan's head. In the end, she doesn't win. Bailey survives, Nolan refuses to murder her on command, and a sniper's bullet ends Rosalind's final act before she can force him into that one irreversible choice. But if this ranking is about who came closest to truly breaking John Nolan, not just hurting him, not just scarring him, but changing him, then Rosalind Dyer is the name that stands at the top of the list, with Marcus Lindsey not far behind as the kind of mind that could join her if things ever lined up the wrong way. So who actually won when it mattered? Or is Nolan still undefeated where it counts? If they got one more shot, no do-overs, just them and Nolan. Who walks away different? Watch more on my channel to see how it plays out, and stick around for the next videos.